Wow. That's, I think, the biggest thing I have to say about Bristol, just in one word. Wow. I think that this is a race that most fans are going to have a ton of fun with, but can be very polarizing for others. But to me, I got to gush about it because I thought this was a great race. And it was for multiple different reasons, not just one, but overall it was because this was a driver's race. This was all in the driver's hands, and I think this is maybe not something that's going to be able to be replicated all the time, but it's something to strive for over time. And it seems like NASCAR wasn't ashamed in any way of the product, so maybe they can kind of nudge Goodyear into having something similar to this in the future. Maybe a different compound, a different track to try and get a similar outcome. So let's talk about it. Tire wear. That was the big talk of the day. These tires were basically just on a cheese grater. You had the marbles at the top of the track that were incredibly prevalent. And because of that, you had drivers having to either decide, should I just go all out, full on sprint in the first half of a run and take the necessary hit that I'm going to get after? Or should I kind of lay back? Let those youngsters up there fly up like Ty Gibbs. I'll catch them. I know I will because I've done this before. Older drivers excelled in this because 40 or 50 laps doesn't seem like much at Bristol, but when your tires are completely junked in that time, it takes incredible patience at a short track to let somebody fly away only to know you'll catch them again. This, to me, is what most of us fans were wanting. This is what we want of short tracks or shorter tracks that NASCAR talks about, like Phoenix. I don't want people in the media to think, oh yeah, you just like this one because of the crashes. No, that is not it whatsoever. We like this because of the comers and goers in this race. We had 54 lead changes, and it was almost solely having to do with the fact that the tires and the setups and everything with the track was letting drivers be able to control their destiny, which is something that generally makes some pretty damn good racing over time. I don't want people to think that the complaining about Phoenix is rectified because of some bash 'em and crash 'em racing that honestly we really didn't have. It was not a ton of crashing. It was just a lot of racing action. This is one of those races that you can have a highlight reel of, doesn't have any of those giant major moments, doesn't have a big one, doesn't have the leader getting crashed by a lapper, doesn't have, a 4-wide pass for the lead, but it has a bunch of those great moments we can appreciate for how good the drivers were. It was the razor's edge when it came to staying on the line. You saw it in qualifying where these guys, if they got their tires just a little bit out of the normal groove, were going to fly up the track and lose 2 or 3 seconds in the lap. And because of this, strategy, especially at the end, was insane. You saw who could outlast the others. And the finish between Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. is not the type of finish like Atlanta that's going to get on SportsCenter. But for people who are true racing fans and love that grassroots feel of a local short track, you've gotta love it. The conservative tire strategies versus being aggressive in a win battle between the two of them was excellent to see and a masterclass of driving. You saw these lappers all over the place. Guys who were racing them for the lead 15 laps beforehand were getting lapped. They were 2 and sometimes 3 wide ahead of them, and they had to navigate that, not cause an accident, not get caught up in other people's accidents, and still battle each other. That is NASCAR Cup Series racing at its finest. And it was a full mystery from beginning of the day to end of the day who would win. We had 2 passes for the lead in the last 15 laps. With 15 or so to go, it was Truex getting past Denny Hamlin, and then Hamlin would pass him back after navigating lap traffic better. That's the kind of stuff we need to see more of. Now, why did this happen? Because I think that's another question people have. Everything from what it was sounding like was going to be the same as the Bristol night race last year. But this race was not the Bristol night race last year by any means. There are 2 reasons I see a lot of people giving. The first one is colder weather. Obviously, a March race in Tennessee is going to be different than a September race. And even while it was run at night, I can tell you, having lived in Tennessee now a couple years, it can get pretty toasty in September during the fall months when some places are getting a little cooler, maybe getting down to the 60s. Tennessee can still be in the 90s and hit 100 in September, and at night, being humid and hot, you're going to have the cars react differently. Whereas this time of year, well, it's still in the 60s, but this is warm for this time of year. March in Tennessee is generally in the 50s or so, which is about what Bristol was for the most part of the day. And because of that, it might have made the tires react differently. But the other one is the resin, which wasn't there last year for the Bristol night race. This could be the reason why we had so many changes, but it also doesn't explain why they couldn't widen out the groove and rubber wouldn't be laid down. Was the resin getting on the tires and stopping that? That's the part that a lot of people, I think, are questioning, and rightfully so. These are the same tires as last year, and that's the crazy part about this. So, to me, this could be a flash-in-the-pan race, and we need to appreciate it in case it is. I'm hoping it's not, but that is a very real possibility because we've seen, whether it be with the 550 package at night, where just the right factors can make any package really, really good. But I will say what this was definitely not, and I am so sick of seeing this comp on social media. This was not the 2008 Brickyard 400. For those who are too young to have seen it, this is probably the worst race I have ever watched as a fan. Now, granted, I have only been a fan for 20 years at this point. There are plenty of people who have watched this sport much longer than me that are the same age as me, so I might have a limited scope of what a bad race is. But for me, this takes the gold for awful. This race was a mess. There was no tire fall off. It was just pure blowout. It was basically waiting for somebody to just blow your tire off with a sniper rifle from 500 yards away. There was nothing the drivers could do. They could not control any of it. And they were at the mercy of what was frankly a dangerous situation at the time, which is why NASCAR had to throw so many debris yellows, basically, or comp yellows as they call them, because they didn't want these guys blowing tires out at 200 miles an hour going into a 90-degree corner. Not a good recipe for driver safety, and NASCAR did what they could. I feel like, again, these comparisons people are making to this race that sucked, that is the worst race I've ever watched, are either cynical fans that always will bitch and moan about everything going on in NASCAR, which we all see, or they are not old enough to watch or have remembered a 16-year-old race at this point, which there are now a lot more fans who have a voice on social media that are that age or around that age. I can tell you, if you only watch the highlights and then watch the highlights of people blowing them out here, sure, I guess I can see why you're getting that comparison. If you watched both races, flag to flag, live, you are not making that comparison. Just a little pet peeve of mine about this race and about what people are saying about it that I have to get off my chest. And to kind of finish off, NASCAR right now is on a roll. The Clash was good despite the circumstances. The 500 was great. Atlanta is goated. Vegas was really good. Phoenix, yeah, mediocre, but a flash-in-the-pan blip compared to an amazing Bristol race right after it. This has been one of the best starts to a season I can ever remember, and fans need to appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to ask you what you thought of the 2024 Food City 500. Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support, and until next time, have a good one.